She never imagined that being torn from her home would lead to the most unexpected journey of her life. But what happens when survival turns into something far more dangerous? Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story, and where you're watching from and why you're following this. The scorching Texas sun beat down on the small settlement of Willow Creek as Sarah Bennett stood on the porch of her family's modest farmhouse, watching dust clouds billow on the horizon. At 22, she had known little beyond the boundaries of this frontier outpost, but her heart yearned for more. Her honey blonde hair was tied back in a practical braid, and her blue calico dress had seen better days, but there was a fierce determination in her green eyes that belied her gentle appearance. "Sarah, come inside now," her father called, his voice strained with worry. "There's word of Comanche riders heading this way." The year was 1858, and tensions between settlers and the native tribes had reached a breaking point. Sarah's father, Thomas Bennett, had moved their family west 5 years earlier after losing his wife to consumption. He had promised Sarah's mother that he would give their daughter a better life, but the harsh realities of frontier living had made that promise difficult to keep. "Pa, the chickens need feeding," Sarah protested, though she knew the danger was real. "They can wait," Thomas insisted, ushering her inside and barring the door. Jackson rode in from the Miller place. Said he spotted a war party not 10 miles from here. Sarah's younger brother, Daniel, just 13, clutched his father's old rifle with trembling hands. "Are they coming for us, Pa?" Thomas placed a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. "We don't know that, son, but we best be prepared." As night fell, Sarah couldn't sleep. The night was unnaturally quiet. No chirping crickets or howling coyotes, just silence. She sat by the window, a small candle burning low, mending one of Daniel's shirts. The stillness was broken by the distant sound of hoofbeats. "Pa," she whispered urgently, shaking her father awake. Before Thomas could fully rise from his bed, the door splintered open. 3 Comanche warriors stood in the doorway, their faces painted for war. Sarah screamed as one grabbed her arm, his grip like iron. Daniel raised the rifle, but another warrior knocked it from his hands with ease. "Please," Thomas begged, "take whatever you want, but leave my children." The warriors spoke in their native tongue, words foreign and harsh to Sarah's ears. The one who appeared to be the leader, tall with a scar across his right cheek, surveyed the small cabin before his eyes settled on Sarah. He spoke sharply to the others. "No!" Thomas lunged forward, but the butt of a war club caught him in the temple. He crumpled to the floor as Daniel cried out. Sarah fought as they dragged her outside, where more warriors waited on horseback. The leader spoke again, and Sarah was lifted onto a horse, her wrists bound with rawhide. She looked back at her home one last time, seeing Daniel helping their father to his feet in the doorway. "Pa, Daniel," she called out, tears streaming down her face. "Sarah!" Her father's anguished cry faded as the Comanche party rode away into the darkness, taking her with them. For 3 days they traveled, deeper into Comanche territory than any white settler dared venture. Sarah's fear gave way to exhaustion, then a numb acceptance of her fate. She had heard stories of white captives, some killed, others adopted into the tribe, and some sold or traded to other bands. None of the warriors spoke to her, though the leader, whom she had heard the others call Taka, occasionally brought her water and dried meat. On the 4th day, they arrived at a large Comanche encampment nestled in a valley beside a flowing river. Dozens of tipis stood in a semicircle, smoke rising from cook fires. Women stopped their work to watch as the war party returned, children running alongside the horses with excited shouts. Sarah was brought before an older man, his face deeply lined, his long hair streaked with gray. He wore an elaborate headdress and spoke with authority. Taka presented Sarah to him, speaking at length in Comanche. The elder nodded, studying Sarah with dark, penetrating eyes. Then, to her surprise, he spoke in broken English. "You now belong to Stone Wolf. You work for him. You live or die by his hand." Sarah's gaze followed his gesture to a warrior standing apart from the others. Taller than most, with broad shoulders and a face like carved granite, he wore no paint but had intricate tattoos on his muscular arms. His black hair was longer than the others, with a single eagle feather tied into it. His dark eyes betrayed no emotion as he looked at her. Stone Wolf. The name sent a chill through Sarah's body. As he approached, the crowd parted. He circled her once, assessing her as one might inspect a horse for purchase. Without a word, he took the rope that bound her wrists and led her away from the gathering toward a tipi set slightly apart from the others. "Please," Sarah found her voice at last, "I have a family, a father and brother who need me." Stone Wolf stopped and turned to her, his expression unchanged. "Family gone now," he said in English far better than the elders. "You belong to Stone Wolf. You cook, you clean, you work. Understand?" Sarah wanted to scream, to fight, to run, but she knew it would be futile. Instead, she nodded, her jaw clenched tightly as tears threatened to spill. "Good," he said, continuing toward the tipi. "White woman who fight, die. White woman who work, live." He paused again, his eyes meeting hers. "Stone Wolf not want white woman. Chief say I take. So you work hard, maybe I not kill you." With those chilling words, he pushed aside the entrance flap of the tipi and shoved her inside, leaving Sarah alone with her fear and the terrible knowledge that her old life was gone forever. Dawn broke over the Comanche camp as Sarah, huddled in the corner of Stone Wolf's tipi. She had spent the night wide awake, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the camp, distant drumming, the occasional whinny of horses, and the low murmur of voices speaking in a language she couldn't understand. Stone Wolf had not returned to the tipi after leaving her there, for which Sarah was grateful. The entrance flap opened, and an older Comanche woman entered. Her face was weathered like tanned leather, but her eyes held a gentleness that surprised Sarah. "Come," the woman said in halting English, gesturing for Sarah to follow. "I am Mourning Dove. I show you work." Sarah hesitated, then stood on shaky legs. "Where is Stone Wolf?" "Hunting," Mourning Dove replied. "He returned sun high. You learn work before he come." Sarah followed Mourning Dove through the camp, acutely aware of the stares from the Comanche people. Some looked at her with curiosity, others with undisguised hostility. Children pointed and whispered, "Why did he take me?" Sarah asked as Mourning Dove showed her where to collect water from the river. The older woman's expression softened. "Stone Wolf lose wife, 2 winters past. Sickness take her. Take child also." She made a cradling motion with her arms. "He not same after. Heart turn hard like stone. Chief say he need woman to keep tipi, cook food. Chief not ask, chief tell." Sarah felt a flicker of understanding. Stone Wolf hadn't chosen her. She had been forced upon him, just as she had been forced into this new life. It didn't excuse his threats or her captivity, but it explained his coldness. "Mourning Dove," Sarah ventured, "will I ever go home?" The woman shook her head slowly. "This home now, better accept. White woman who try escape. She drew a finger across her throat. As the morning progressed, Mourning Dove taught Sarah to build and tend a fire, prepare cornmeal, and clean deerskins. Though her heart ached for her family, Sarah worked diligently, knowing survival depended on her usefulness. By midday, as Mourning Dove had predicted, Stone Wolf returned with 2 other warriors. They had killed a deer, which they carried between them. Stone Wolf's eyes found Sarah immediately. He handed his knife and bow to one of the other men and approached. "You work?" he asked bluntly. "Yes," Sarah replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Mourning Dove showed me how to tend the fire and prepare food." Stone Wolf nodded once, then turned to Mourning Dove, speaking in Comanche. The older woman responded, gesturing towards Sarah occasionally. Whatever she said seemed to satisfy him. "You prepare deer," he instructed Sarah. "Mourning Dove show how." For the next several days, a routine developed. Sarah would rise before dawn to collect water and tend the fire. Stone Wolf would leave to hunt, train with other warriors, or attend council meetings. Sarah would work all day cooking, cleaning, scraping hides. and learning the basics of Comanche language from Morning Dove. In the evenings, Stone Wolf would return, eat silently, and often leave again until late in the night. They rarely spoke beyond necessary instructions, which suited Sarah fine. She observed him, though, watching how the other tribe members treated him with a mixture of respect and caution. He was clearly an important warrior, but he kept to himself, seldom joining in community gatherings. One evening, nearly 2 weeks after her capture, Sarah was preparing supper when Stone Wolf returned unexpectedly early. He entered the tipi silently, startling her. Blood streaked his arm from a long gash. "You hurt," she said, setting aside the cooking pot. He grunted, sitting heavily on a pile of furs. "Arrow graze. Kiowa hunting party. We drive away." Sarah hesitated, then took a clean cloth and approached him. "I should clean it. It could fester." Stone Wolf watched her warily but extended his arm. Sarah dipped the cloth in water and gently cleaned the wound. As she worked, she became aware of his intense gaze. "Why you help?" he asked suddenly. "You hate Stone Wolf. Why not let wound rot?" Sarah paused, considering her answer. "I don't hate you," she said finally, surprising herself with the truth of it. "I hate being taken from my family. I hate being a captive, but hate won't help me survive here." Stone Wolf's expression remained unreadable, but something flickered in his dark eyes. "Your name? What white people call you?" "Sarah," she replied. "Sarah Bennett." He nodded slowly. "Sarah," he repeated, the name sounding different in his deep voice. "Strong name. Strong woman." It was the closest thing to a compliment he had given her. Sarah finished binding his wound with a strip of clean hide. "Thank you," he said, the words sounding unpracticed. That night, Stone Wolf stayed in the tipi. He sat across the fire from Sarah, watching as she mended a torn buckskin shirt. The silence between them felt different, not comfortable, but less strained. "Your family," he said suddenly. "Father and brother, yes?" Sarah nodded, her throat tightening at the mention of them. "My father's name is Thomas. My brother is Daniel. He's 13. She hesitated, then asked, "Do you think they're looking for me?" "Yes," Stone Wolf said matter-of-factly. "White men always look for lost women. Sometimes find, sometimes not." "And if they find me?" Sarah dared to ask. Stone Wolf's expression hardened again. "They die, you stay." The brief moment of connection shattered. Sarah returned to her mending, blinking back tears. "Stone Wolf not always Comanche name," he said unexpectedly, several minutes later. "Born tall feather. Becomes Stone Wolf when heart turned to stone." Sarah looked up, surprised by this personal revelation. "Because of your wife and child?" He nodded once, his jaw tight. "Fever come. Take yellow flower. Take unborn son." His hands clenched into fists. "I strongest warrior. Could not fight invisible enemy. I'm sorry," Sarah said softly. "My mother died of consumption, a sickness in the lungs. My father brought us west hoping for a better life after she passed." For a moment, they sat in shared understanding of loss. Then Stone Wolf stood abruptly. "Sleep now," he ordered, though his tone lacked its usual harshness. "Tomorrow Morning Dove teach you make moccasins. Your feet soft like rabbit. Need protection." As Sarah settled onto her sleeping mat, she realized something had shifted between them. Stone Wolf was still her captor, and she was still his captive, but for the first time, she had glimpsed the man behind the hardened exterior. It wasn't friendship or even true kindness, but it was something other than the cold indifference she had come to expect. In the darkness, Sarah allowed herself to wonder if Stone Wolf's heart had turned to stone after losing his family. Was it possible that something human remained buried beneath? The seasons changed, summer heat giving way to autumn crispness, as Sarah marked 3 months in the Comanche camp. Her hands, once soft from farm work, now bore the calluses of a tribal woman. Her skin had darkened under the relentless sun, and her once awkward movements while performing daily tasks had become fluid and practiced. Stone Wolf noticed. "You learn fast," he commented one evening as she skillfully prepared a rabbit stew. adding wild onions and herbs she had gathered under Mourning Dove's guidance. "Thank you," Sarah replied, the Comanche words now coming naturally to her lips. She had learned quickly, understanding that communication was key to survival. Their relationship had evolved into something neither had anticipated. Not friendship exactly, but a cautious respect. Stone Wolf no longer threatened her, and Sarah no longer harbored immediate hopes of escape. The reality of her situation had settled in. She was days of hard riding from any white settlement, in territory patrolled by Comanche warriors. Even if she could somehow steal a horse and supplies, her chances of survival were slim. Instead, she had adapted, finding small comforts in her new routine. Mourning Dove had become a mentor and, surprisingly, something of a friend. The older woman had lost her own daughter years ago and seemed to find satisfaction in teaching Sarah the ways of the people, as the Comanche called themselves. "Winter comes soon," Stone Wolf said, accepting the bowl of stew Sarah offered him. "You need warmer clothes. Tomorrow we go to trading post." Sarah nearly dropped the ladle. "Trading post? With white people?" He nodded, watching her reaction carefully. 3 days' ride. "Need supplies? Blankets, metal pots, coffee." He paused. "You come to help carry, to speak white man words if needed." Sarah's heart raced. A trading post meant white settlers, possibly even a chance to. "You think of escape," Stone Wolf stated flatly, reading her expression. "It would be death. Trading post run by man who trade with Comanche many years. He not help white woman captive, and I not let you from my sight." Sarah lowered her eyes, knowing he spoke the truth, but unable to completely extinguish the spark of hope his words had kindled. "I understand," she said quietly. "Good." Stone Wolf finished his meal in silence, then added, "We leave at dawn. 3 others come with us." The journey to the trading post was arduous but exhilarating for Sarah, who had not ventured beyond the immediate vicinity of the camp since her capture. Stone Wolf had given her a horse of her own to ride, a significant concession that acknowledged her improved status. No longer merely a captive, she was now recognized as a member of his household, albeit an unwilling one. Their small party consisted of Stone Wolf, Sarah, and 3 warriors. Eagle Feather, a serious young man who rarely spoke. Running Elk, Stone Wolf's closest friend among the tribe. And Black Horse, an older warrior with a wicked scar across his forehead. As they rode, Sarah observed how the others deferred to Stone Wolf, seeking his opinion on which paths to take and where to make camp. His leadership was unquestioned, his decisions final. Yet she also noticed moments of camaraderie, a shared joke between him and Running Elk, a patient explanation to young Eagle Feather about tracking game. On the second night of their journey, as they sat around the campfire, Running Elk spoke to Stone Wolf in Comanche, nodding toward Sarah. "He asks if white woman still plans to run," Stone Wolf translated, his dark eyes fixed on Sarah. She met his gaze steadily. "Tell him I have a name." "It's Sarah." Stone Wolf's lips twitched almost a smile. He replied to Running Elk, who laughed and said something that made the others chuckle too. "What did you tell him?" Sarah asked. "I say Sarah has spirit of Comanche woman, even if skin is white." Sarah wasn't sure if it was a compliment or not, but she felt a strange pride at the assessment. Late that night, when the others were asleep, Stone Wolf sat beside her as she stared up at the stars. "Why you not sleeping?" he asked quietly. "The stars," she replied. "They're the same ones I used to see from my father's farm. It makes me feel ... She struggled to find the word in Comanche. Connected. To before. Stone Wolf was silent for a long moment. "You still miss white family?" It wasn't a question, but Sarah answered anyway. "Yes, every day." "You have new family now," he said, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. "People take you in. Mourning Dove care for you like daughter." "Not by choice," Sarah reminded him. "I was taken." "Many Comanche women not choose husband," Stone Wolf countered. "Father choose. They learn to accept, to build good life." Sarah turned to look at him, moonlight silvering his strong profile. "Is that what you want?" For me to accept this as my life now, to be your wife? The question hung between them, heavier than she had intended. Stonewolf's expression remained impassive, but she sensed tension in his shoulders. You not wife, he said finally. Wife must choose, Stonewolf. You not choose. The distinction surprised her. I thought the chief gave me to you. To work, Stonewolf clarified. Not as wife. He stood abruptly. Sleep now. Reach trading post tomorrow. As he walked away, Sarah felt confusion replace certainty. In her 3 months of captivity, she had assumed her role was that of an unwilling wife. To learn that Stonewolf made a distinction, that he considered her choice important, shifted something fundamental in her understanding of him. The trading post, when they reached it the following afternoon, was a crude collection of log buildings surrounded by a wooden palisade. The main structure housed the trading floor, while smaller outbuildings served as storerooms and living quarters for the trader and his family. As their party approached, Sarah saw a grizzled white man emerge, rifle in hand but pointed downward, cautious but not hostile. Stonewolf, the man called. Been some months since you graced my establishment. McGregor, Stonewolf acknowledged, dismounting. We come to trade. The trader's eyes fell on Sarah, widening slightly. I see you've acquired new company since last time. Stonewolf's expression hardened. She's under my protection. You treat with respect. McGregor raised his hands placatingly. No disrespect intended, Chief. Just an observation. He gestured toward the main building. Come in, come in. The missus just brewed coffee. Inside, Sarah felt a wave of conflicting emotions as she stood surrounded by trappings of her former life shelves, stocked with flour, coffee, and tobacco, bolts of cotton fabric, iron cookware. Mrs. McGregor, a stout woman with a kind face lined by years of frontier hardship, studied Sarah with open curiosity, but said nothing about her presence among the Comanche. While Stonewolf and Running Elk negotiated trades, buffalo hides and beadwork for metal tools, coffee, and woolen blankets, Sarah helped Mrs. McGregor prepare a meal for the visitors. How long you been with them? The older woman asked quietly when they were momentarily alone in the kitchen. 3 months, Sarah replied, her English feeling strange on her tongue after speaking mostly Comanche. Mrs. McGregor nodded, her eyes sympathetic. You're not the first white woman I've seen come through with a band. Some are treated well, some ... double quotes, she trailed off. Stonewolf seems to respect you. He does, Sarah confirmed, surprised at her own certainty. You want me to get word to anyone? Family looking for you, maybe? The question Sarah had been waiting for, the moment she had imagined for weeks. Yet now, faced with the possibility, she hesitated. My father and brother, she said finally. Thomas and Daniel Bennett. Settlement called Willow Creek, about 5 days' ride southeast of Fort Richardson. Mrs. McGregor nodded. I'll see the message gets passed along next supply wagon. Can't promise more than that. Thank you, Sarah whispered, aware that Stonewolf could return at any moment. As they prepared to leave the trading post the following morning, Stonewolf approached Sarah, holding a package wrapped in brown paper. For you, he said, extending it toward her. Open when we return to camp. Sarah accepted the package wordlessly, touched by the unexpected gesture. The journey back passed uneventfully, though Sarah noticed Stonewolf watching her more closely than before, his expression thoughtful. Upon their return to camp, Sarah unwrapped the package in the privacy of the tipi. Inside lay a length of blue calico fabric, almost identical to the dress she had been wearing when captured, and a small silver hand mirror. You like? Stonewolf asked from the entrance, startling her. Sarah ran her fingers over the fabric, emotion tightening her throat. Yes, thank you. He nodded once. Blue like your eyes, he said simply, then left her alone with the first gifts she had received in her new life, and the knowledge that Stonewolf had not only noticed the color of her eyes, but had remembered the dress she wore when she entered his world. That night, as she lay awake listening to Stonewolf's steady breathing across the tipi, Sarah confronted a troubling realization. The message she had sent with Mrs. McGregor no longer filled her. with the desperate hope it once would have. Something had changed during their journey, or perhaps had been changing gradually all along. Stone Wolf was still her captor, but he was also becoming something else, something she wasn't ready to name, even to herself. Winter descended upon the Comanche territory, blanketing the landscape in snow and driving the tribe to move their camp to a sheltered valley where game remained plentiful and the bitter north winds couldn't penetrate. Sarah had sewn her blue calico fabric into a warm dress, which she wore over buckskin leggings when the weather permitted, a blend of her old life and new that felt strangely fitting. 6 months had passed since her capture, and with each day, memories of her life at Willow Creek seemed to recede further, like drawings in sand washed away by waves. She still thought of her father and Daniel, still wondered if they searched for her. But the acute pain of separation had dulled to a persistent ache that she had learned to carry. "You walk with head in clouds," Morning Dove chided as they gathered dried berries for the evening meal. "Winter dangerous time for dreamers." Sarah smiled at the older woman. "I was thinking about how much has changed. Half a year ago, I knew nothing of your ways. Now I can make pemmican, tan hides, speak your language." "You learn well," Morning Dove agreed. "But still much to learn." She paused, studying Sarah with knowing eyes. Heart learning slowest of all. Before Sarah could respond, shouts erupted from the direction of the camp. Both women turned to see a rider approaching at full gallop, one of the scouts who patrolled the perimeter of their territory. "Trouble," Morning Dove murmured, hurrying back toward the camp with Sarah close behind. The scout spoke rapidly to the gathering warriors, his horse lathered with sweat despite the cold. Stone Wolf stood at the center of the group, his face grave as he listened. When he saw Sarah, he motioned for her to join him. "What's happening?" she asked. "White soldiers," he replied tersely. "Many, with Tonka Woe scouts. They search for Comanche camps." Sarah's heart stuttered. "Why?" Stone Wolf's jaw tightened. "Revenge. Comanche band raid Texas ranch last moon. Kill settlers." "Not our band," he added, seeing her expression. "But white men think all Comanche same." "What will we do?" "Break camp, move deeper into hills." He gripped her shoulders. "Sarah, listen now. If soldiers come, they take you back to white people." A moment she had imagined countless times in her early days of captivity rescue, return to her old life. Yet now, the prospect filled her with conflicting emotions. "I won't tell them where to find you," she promised. Stone Wolf shook his head. "Not asking that, asking what you want. To go with soldiers, or—" He hesitated. "Or stay with people, with Stone Wolf." The directness of the question took her breath away. For the first time, he was acknowledging that she had a choice, that her future was her own to decide. Before she could answer, the chief summoned Stone Wolf to council. "Think," he told her. "But not too long. We leave when sun touches mountaintop." The camp erupted into organized chaos as women dismantled tippus, packed belongings, and prepared for immediate departure. Sarah worked alongside them, her mind racing. What did she truly want? Return to a life that no longer felt entirely hers? Or remain with people who had been her captors but had, over time, become something closer to family? And Stone Wolf, the warrior who had once threatened her life, now looked at her with eyes that held respect, and perhaps something deeper. She had seen the gradual softening of his demeanor, not just toward her, but toward life itself. The heart that had turned to stone was slowly thawing. As Sarah helped Morning Dove secure bundles to a travois, the older woman spoke without looking up. "Stone Wolf asked if you stay by choice?" Sarah nodded, surprised. "How did you know?" Morning Dove smiled. "I have eyes. I see how he watch you. How you watch him when think no one see." She tied off a leather thong with practiced efficiency. "What your heart say?" "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "Part of me still belongs to my old life." "Heart can belong to many places," Morning Dove said wisely, "but must live in one." Their conversation was interrupted by renewed shouting. Sarah looked up to see another scout riding Hardened to camp, gesturing urgently behind him. "Soldiers!" the cry went up. "Soldiers coming!" Stone Wolf appeared at Sarah's side, bow in hand, quiver strapped to his back. "No time to move all camp," he said grimly. "Warriors will lead soldiers away from women and children." His eyes locked with hers. "You must decide now, Sarah Bennett. Stay or go." In that moment, with danger approaching and seconds to decide, clarity washed over Sarah like a summer rain. The answer had been forming within her for months, revealed now by the urgent need to choose. "I stay," she said, her voice steady. Not as captive, as choice. Something powerful flashed in Stone Wolf's eyes, relief, joy, gratitude, all mingled into one expression that transformed his face. He reached out, touching her cheek with calloused fingers. "Then you ride with Morning Dove. To sacred caves and high hills. Wait there until safe. And you?" Sarah asked, suddenly afraid. "Lead soldiers away. Then return." His hand dropped to her shoulder, squeezing once. Stone Wolf always returned to what is his. Before she could respond, gunfire erupted at the edge of camp. The soldiers had arrived sooner than expected, their blue uniforms visible through the trees as they formed a skirmish line. "Go!" Stone Wolf commanded, helping Sarah onto a horse. "Now!" As Morning Dove led her away with the other women and children, Sarah looked back to see Stone Wolf mounting his war horse, raising his bow and letting out a war cry that was echoed by the warriors rallying around him. They rode toward the soldiers, not to attack but to draw them away from the fleeing families. The group of women, children, and elders traveled hard through the day and into the night, finally reaching the caves Stone Wolf had mentioned. They were high in the hills, difficult to access but secure once reached. As they settled into wait, Sarah found herself praying to the Christian God of her childhood and to the Comanche spirits for Stone Wolf's safe return. 2 tense days passed. Some of the women wept, fearing their men lost to the soldiers' rifles. Morning Dove remained stoic, but Sarah saw the worry in her eyes. "Will they come back?" Sarah asked on the third morning as they stood at the cave entrance watching the valley below. "Some," Morning Dove replied honestly. "Others join ancestors in sky." Around midday, a sentry called out. Riders approached Comanche warriors, their numbers diminished but intact enough to send a wave of relief through the waiting families. Sarah scanned the group anxiously until she spotted him, Stone Wolf, his face streaked with grime and what might have been blood, but alive. She ran down the path to meet him as he dismounted, stopping just short of throwing herself into his arms. Comanche restraint had become part of her now, too. "You're hurt," she said, seeing a bandage wrapped around his upper arm. "Bullet graze only," he dismissed. "Soldiers follow false trail into Kiowa territory. Lost many horses. 2 warriors join ancestors." His expression softened as he looked at her. "You well?" "Yes," she answered. "Worried for you." Around them, families reunited with tears and embraces. Stone Wolf glanced at them, then back to Sarah. "Come," he said. "Walk with me." They climbed to a ridge overlooking the valley, snow crunching beneath their moccasins. In the distance, smoke rose from the remains of their abandoned camp. "We build new camp," Stone Wolf said. "Further west, safer." Sarah nodded. "I'll help." He turned to face her fully. "Sarah, you choose to stay. Why?" The question was direct, as was his way. Sarah considered her answer carefully. "When I was captured, I thought my life was over, but it wasn't over, it changed. I found strength I never knew I had. I found ... She hesitated, then continued. "I found people who respect that strength. And I found you." Stone Wolf's expression remained serious, but his eyes warmed. "Me? The man who threatened to kill me if I didn't work," Sarah said with a small smile. "The man who protected me at the trading post. The man who noticed my eyes match blue calico." Stone Wolf noticed many things about Sarah Bennett, he admitted. How she stands straight when afraid. How she learned Comanche ways but keep white woman spirit. How she makes Stone Wolf's heart remember it once not made of stone. He reached for her hand, his touch tentative, the fearsome warrior suddenly uncertain. "In spring, when flowers return, I ask you properly to be wife, not as captive. As woman who choose. Sarah twined her fingers with his. And if I choose yes? Then Stone Wolf no longer be Stone Wolf, he said. Return to birth name Tall Feather. Man with heart of flesh, not stone. I would like to meet this Tall Feather, Sarah said softly. For the first time in her presence, Stone Wolf smiled fully, the expression transforming his stern features. He stand before you now, he said, drawing her closer. Heart already changed. As winter's sun glinted off the snow-covered hills, Sarah Bennett, once captive and now a woman of her own choosing, stood beside the warrior whose heart had thawed alongside her own. The journey ahead would not be easy. 2 worlds bridged by love was never a simple path, but it was the path they had chosen together. In the spring, when wildflowers carpeted the plains and new life emerged from winter's grip, Sarah and Tall Feather were joined in Comanche ceremony, their union blessed by both the tribe and by Mourning Dove, who wept happy tears for the daughter of her heart, and the warrior who had found his way back from grief. And if sometimes Sarah still looked east, toward the home she had left behind, she did so not with longing but with understanding that life's currents carried people in unexpected directions. Her father and brother would always hold places in her heart, just as her new family did. Regrets? Tall Feather asked one evening, finding her gazing at the stars. No, Sarah answered truthfully, leaning into his embrace. Only gratitude for the journey. Even the difficult parts led me here. His arms tightened around her. 2 hearts, once stone, now beat as one. In the language of the Comanche, in the language of love, no truer words had ever been spoken.